Tool theft is thriving. According to a report from Direct Line Business Insurance, tools are nicked out of vans, off sites and from garages and lockups every 15 minutes in the UK. There were over 35,000 reported incidents of tool theft in 2022, up nearly 15% on the year before. The report suggested that nearly a quarter of tradespeople had been victims of tool theft in the last year. It's not hard to see why tool theft is on the rise.
There was some research done recently, and it will be released soon through the Home Office, whereby some offenders were interviewed, and they were saying that they love stealing tools because, one, they get a really good price for it second hand, whereas other things like jewellery and stuff, the price depreciates, and two, it's really easy to get rid of.
But things could be about to change. At the end of July, the Equipment Theft Prevention Bill completed its third reading in the House of Lords, and then it went to the Palace to be signed into law. The private member's bill from Tory MP for Buckingham Greg Smith will introduce forensic marking on power tools, making it easier for the police to return stolen items, but much harder for thieves to sell them on.
So there will be a provision that says at the point of sale, all quad bikes, side-by-sides, ATVs, GPS units, other agricultural equipment, and tools of a certain value. We're aiming this at the serious end of the market that tradespeople use, not the stuff you get for 25 quid from the Argos catalogue, will have to, at the point of sale, become pre-installed with a standard of forensic marking that meets the secondary legislation that will be passed as part of this bill, or act as it soon will be. And that will create national databases that the police can check against.
For the police, the new law is a massive first step.
So hopefully a huge impact. So if we get the gold aim of what we want to achieve with this, which is ultimately that manufacturers mark property with some form of forensic marking and they're registered, then I think that impact will be huge. Because at the minute we've got so many scenarios where, for example, a police officer will stop a van at 3 o'clock in the morning, suspected stolen tools in the back, and there's just no way that we can identify them. So two key things I think for this is the fact that, one, police will be able to identify them, trace it to their owner and get some convictions. And two, I think there's a massive deterrent there.
Even with the law passed, there is a lot of work still to be done. The Home Office will now start work on a secondary legislation that will detail how the forensic marking system will work.
There's numerous things that have to happen as soon as the bill has royal assent and becomes a law, an act. The government's already consulting on the standards for the forensic marking that they have to meet. It's where we will set the value of a power tool, for example, that is going to need forensically marked. And that there is still a debate to be had with the industry, with manufacturers, with builders and carpenters and plumbers and electricians themselves to say what's the right point at which forensic marking needs to be applied. Yeah, it's obvious to me that probably under 100, under 150 quid, the marginal return for putting 20 quid's worth of forensic marking on it doesn't pay back. Secondary legislation will then set the terms and conditions.
Most tradespeople will say the bill doesn't go far enough. For one, it doesn't introduce stiffer penalties for tool thieves. It won't provide an overnight solution to the problem, but it is an important starting point.
I recognise it as a starting point. I'm not trying to say that this is some sort of magic bullet that is going to end tool theft overnight. This is a serious problem that we need to absolutely tackle. The police tell me this will make a difference. The policing minister is very much up for getting on with this and doing this. But you're right, it's the start of a process. There may well have to be tinkering and changing some of the specs that get set along the way to make it work, to see how it works in practice.
Lee Holden, a general builder and founder of the Trade Tool Collective, believes that the new law could make a major impact.
So the Equipment Theft Prevention Bill will help tradespeople that buy expensive tools, probably over £500, and it'll help them track their tools. If they're ever stolen and recovered, it will be able to link the tool back to the owner, and hopefully will prevent thieves taking the tools in the first place, knowing that the tools are forensically marked from manufacturer. should be a good thing. The bill is a starting point. What has to happen next is hopefully manufacturers are seeing that this works for them, because that's what counts really in their eyes, and they start forensically marking cheaper tools, or all tools, hopefully.
Reducing tool theft also means addressing other issues, and near the top of the agenda is van security.
There are other areas within tool theft that we've identified that are problems, such as vehicle security. Most theft of tools occur from either a residential burglary or theft from your van, from your work van. So on that, we've been working with Thatcham, who give the insurance rating for your vehicles. As it stands, if you have brought a van and there's a bulkhead between the driver's compartment and the rear loading bay, which is pretty much all vans, there's no security requirement for the rear loading base, which is where you keep your tools. And that probably is why there are so many tools stolen from vans, because at the minute it's fairly easy to break into a van and nick tools. So by working with Thatcham, every new vehicle goes through something called a new vehicle security assessment, and they have agreed to include the rear loading bays of vehicles going forward. So we're looking at things like double lock-in, immobilisers, alarms, things that have never been on the rear of a vehicle before, unless you buy it personally. So for new vehicles in 2 or 3 years' time, they'll all have that. So we're completely raising the standards of that security.
Having taken on auto manufacturers about quad bike security in the Equipment Theft Prevention Bill, Greg Smith is keen to discuss van security.
Just on the quad bike issue, another thing this bill does in its own right is quads are about the only road-going vehicle left that don't come as standard with an immobiliser. Vehicle security is very much on my agenda as well. That's something I've looked at with the police, with ministers. It would need separate legislation. When it comes to van security, I do think the manufacturers need to step up here, and the manufacturers need to be building in much more sophisticated locking mechanisms, entry systems to those vehicles that can't be so easily intercepted. Then I'm up for that for a next challenge.